Narcissistic personality disorder, also known as NPD, and psychopaths. It was 10 years ago that I found out about this. I didn't really know about it before then. And I look around the world and I realise that so many people don't know about it. In fact, I think most of the world don't really know what a narcissist is. And I see a lot of videos about narcissists on YouTube, but what I don't see is people making the connection between the way the world is run, what we see happening in the world, and the connection between psychopaths and narcissistic personality disorder. As I say, it was 10 years ago when I first stumbled across this because I was in a relationship with a narcissist. I didn't know that at the time. And I was just kind of searching around for answers, trying to find out what was going on. I was Googling certain things, looking for certain things, and I stumbled across it. And I would say it took me another 2 years to get out of that relationship. But also what happened was it made me realise that this wasn't the first person I'd been in a relationship with that was a narcissist. And it also made me realise that it was in my family. And for anyone that's ever kind of done any research on this or that knows about this, they will know that you go through certain stages. First of all, you kind of don't know what's going on, then you start to discover it, you start to learn about it. It takes a while to kind of accept it, that there's people that just don't have this normal emotional range. Then you make a whole bunch of excuses for it, and then eventually you get out of it and you start to see the light. And if you're very lucky like I was able to really get very, very clear on what NPD is. And I am very aware of it. I've done a lot of research on it. I mean, this is 10 years ago that this journey began. But what I find particularly frustrating is just the lack of knowledge. I mean, I see really intelligent people that are much more academically intelligent than me, much more common sense than me, and they really don't understand what it is. The word narcissist is just bandied around like it's just somebody you don't like, or it's somebody that's selfish, or somebody that's full of themselves. And it's not used in the correct manner. People don't realise how dangerous this is, and they don't realise how prevalent it is, and they don't realise how damaging and destroying it is. They also don't really know what a psychopath is. They think it's absurd that they might know a psychopath. They think it's absurd there might be a psychopath in their family. They think it's this kind of obscure thing and you would know if you met one, and they're serial killers and it's all very extreme. No, they go under the radar all the time. And when I see what's going on in the world, I see narcissists everywhere, in power, in control. And this is why the world is the way it is, because it's not empathic individuals running the world. The amount of politicians that have NPD, the amount of people at the top that are psychopaths. And this isn't anything to do with left and right or how you vote. This is actually starting for people to wake up to what this is. Now, my experience was, as I say, I was in a relationship with a narcissist. I didn't know what it was. I stuck with it for longer than I should. It was a ridiculous relationship in hindsight. But it's very easy to try and become the fixer in these sort of relationships. You're trying to fix the person, support the person, help the person. And I started off Googling depression because this is what he claimed he was suffering with, depression. That he had been diagnosed with depression some years earlier. And in Googling depression, it just didn't fit. It just didn't fit with the behaviour I was seeing. And this led me to bipolar. And I looked at bipolar 1, 2 and 3. It didn't fit. But I read about it quite extensively, but it didn't fit. And then through reading bipolar, I stumbled across borderline personality disorder. And that certainly was closer to what I was dealing with. But it still wasn't quite right. But it was very close. And then through that led me to NPD, Narcissistic Personality Disorder. And then I realised what I was dealing with. And it took me quite a long time to really fully grasp what it is, to really fully grasp that there are people walking around that just do not have emotions. They don't love, they don't care, they don't attach, they don't have empathy. They're very, very dangerous people. And I find it extremely frustrating. I don't know how other people feel about this, but once you know about this and you have this knowledge, and you just can't help but see the world in a very different way, and it can be a very lonely place because lots of other people just don't see it or get it or understand it, or they're just not aware of it. And it's very hard to be in the position that you are aware of it and you do see it crystal clear. And how do you even explain it to people? Because most people just don't get it. It takes a long time to really grasp it. That, you know, there are narcissists that murder people. This isn't just some, oh, they're a bit of a pain. No, that's not what it is. It's extremely dangerous. They are abusers. And I think it can be a very lonely place to understand this, to see it everywhere. And I'm not talking about in some kind of weird, paranoid way, oh, it's just everywhere. Of course, not everybody's a narcissist. Of course, they're not. But it's very, very prevalent. I mean, they say statistically it's 1 in 8 people. And they don't really know because these people don't go and be diagnosed. They don't wake up one day and say, oh, I think I'm a narcissist. I'm going to go along and get this put on my medical record. It just doesn't happen. So they don't really know how many people have narcissistic personality disorder. They don't know. And they're everywhere. And you see them everywhere. And you see them particularly in powerful positions. These people that are big tech, big pharma, governments, the people that are controlling our world don't have any empathy. They don't love, they don't care, they don't attach, they do not have this range of emotions. And that is why we are seeing what we're seeing in the world. I think it's always been the way. And I would just love to connect with people on this channel who find themselves in the same position, that they've learnt about this, they understand it, and they see it, and you have to deal with the fact that people around you just don't understand it. And how difficult that is, because it's everywhere. And I think this education should be in schools and colleges, not just because you've taken a psychology course and it might touch on it. I mean, everybody should be taught about this at a very young age, personality disorders, and very, very dangerous ones. NPD and psychopaths. And there's a very famous professor who made a documentary about psychopaths' brains. I'm going to talk about that in another video. He's a professor that was scanning psychopaths' brains and looking at the differences. And then it turned out that he himself was a psychopath. It's a very, very interesting documentary. And I'm going to talk about that in the next video.